Sanubar Zahidgizi. Unfading hope. Fresh yogurt, yogurt. Fresh, sweet, new, creamy village yogurt. On a spring morning, Seville's voice carried across the whole neighbourhood. From time to time, she would greet passing women, exchange a few words, and then return to arranging the jars of yogurt stacked in the trunk of the yellow Zhiguli. It had been only a month or two since Seville started coming to this neighbourhood to sell yogurt. Here she had plenty of customers, and people were warm and welcoming. Seville was a tall, slender, olive-skinned young woman of about 35 to 40, with fine, beautiful features. The hardships of life could be seen in the lines on her face, yet her eyes always smiled, and there was a pleasant smile on her face. At times, when she cried out her sales pitch, she would grow embarrassed and bow her head. God alone knew what feelings stirred within her heart at that moment. As a woman, what did she say in her heart while experiencing this? That, alas, no one would ever know. Her gentle aura touched the neighbours as well. From the very first day she came, they hurried to buy her yogurt. Her cleanliness, her honesty in trade, and her kind manners won their respect. She never raised prices, never cheated on weight, always sought to satisfy her customers. To those without money, she would give on credit, and never send anyone away empty-handed. As soon as Seville's voice rang out, her grandmother called Gunai. "Sweetie, that woman from last time has come. Take this empty jar, give it to her, and tell her your grandmother says to bring the yogurt up here. I can't go downstairs." "All right, Grandma," Gunai replied, taking the jar. She put on her rubber slippers and went out. "Don't you dare break the jar," Grandmother scolded her. Holding the jar tightly to her chest, Gunai hurried down the stairs. Her curly hair spilled over her fair face, bouncing with each step. "Auntie, my grandma sent this. She said she can't come down. Could you bring up a jar of yogurt?" "Why wouldn't I? Wait a moment, my pretty girl," Seville said, taking the jar from Gunai's hands and placing it inside the car. Then she turned toward the driver and said something. A little later the door opened, and a medium-height blonde man stepped out. His face bore the traces of fatigue and sleepless nights. He walked around to the trunk. Seville chose a jar of yogurt and followed Gunai toward the building entrance. On the way up to the third floor, she chatted with the girl, charmed by her clever, sweet replies. Grandma met Seville right at the doorway. At first, she looked her up and down, carefully, as though passing her through an X-ray. She was a woman who had seen life, with enough experience to recognize people at first glance. Without changing her expression, she said, "Thank you, my daughter, for taking the trouble. These damned legs refuse to follow my will, and I was afraid the girl might drop and break it on the way." "Oh, it was no trouble at all, Auntie. It's just a single jar, hardly a burden." Grandma cast another look at Seville. "Come, have a glass of tea. The table is already set," she invited her inside. "No, Auntie, thank you. I'd better go. I've asked my husband to watch the stall while I'm away." "What's the harm? Let him shout for a while. All this time it's only your voice we've heard. Nothing will happen. You come in. Your throat must be dry by now." Faced with her grandmother's gentle insistence, Seville could say no more. She gently took off her shoes and stepped inside. Grandma had spread a cloth on the floor and laid out what she had at home, placing a teapot and a kettle of tea beside it. The house was simple, filled with old things, yet carried a pleasant air of cleanliness. Seville, feeling shy, sat down where Grandma pointed. Noticing this, Grandma said, "Don't be shy, dear. Feel yourself at home." She poured tea into a crystal glass and handed it to her. "Well then, tell me, whose daughter are you? What's your name, and where do you bring all this yogurt from?" Grandma's direct question woke Seville, as if from a dream. For years she had gone door to door, neighbourhood to neighbourhood selling yogurt, but no one had ever asked her such questions or shown any interest in her. Everyone just knew her as the yogurt seller. "My name is Seville, Auntie. We come from Salian. My apologies, it's just that my husband and I drive out here once a week to sell yogurt, to earn our living. We have 3 or 4 cows and whatever else God has given us in our yard. Do you have any children? Sons, daughters?" "Yes, Auntie. 1 son and 1 daughter." "Are they grown? Do they give a helping hand?" "Yes, thanks to God. The boy is in the 9th grade. When we come here, we leave the cows in his care. The girl is in 8th. She keeps up with the small chores, the house and the yard. And how are they in school?" Grandma's flood of questions tired Seville, yet she answered respectfully, without a hint of rudeness. "It's the village. What can I say? They don't have much interest in studies. If they study through 9th grade, that will suffice." "Why so?" "Keep after them. Make them study." "I always encourage them to study." She turned to her granddaughter, then went on, "Let them study and become skilled in a profession. We live in such times that both boys and girls must learn, must be knowledgeable, must have a profession. If our girls don't get an education, who will raise the next generation of educated children? Who will guide the little ones? Who will care for women during childbirth? They don't necessarily need a university degree, but at the very least they should learn practical skills, like giving an injection, sewing a dress or cooking sweets." "I don't know, Auntie. It's not something I can manage by myself." "It can be managed. You must keep after them. Make them do their lessons. And bring them here sometimes. Bring your daughter. Let her meet Gunay. Gunay is an excellent student. Since 1st grade, her picture has always been on the honour board. Bring your girl. Let her see. Let her be inspired." Gunay's cheeks flushed a little at the praise. "Mashallah, she is a pretty girl. May their fates be bright, dearie. As saying goes, a father may give his child a golden throne, but who can give a golden fate?" Seville answered, "Amin," placed her cup on the floor, and thanked the grandmother. "May God always keep your table full, Auntie. I must go now." "All right then, go. But next time, bring your daughter." "All right," said Seville, stepping out the door. When she approached the yellow Zhiguli, her husband began to grumble. "Come on, get in. You've been gone forever. I'm sleepless." "Get in. Put the empty jars away. There aren't many left." Without replying, Seville began arranging the yogurt jars in the trunk. Still, the old woman's words echoed in her mind. Keep after them. Make them study and gain a profession. Could it really be true that if her children studied and gained a profession, they might see better days? Escape this life of selling yogurt? How could education and a profession change life? No one in her family or in her husband's had ever got education or held a profession. All they had ever seen was physical labour and small trading. In their village, there was no vocational school, no college. Even the school only went up to the 9th grade. And the girls? Their lives followed the same pattern. As soon as they became aware of themselves, they learned household chores and yard work. And later, they were married off to a suitable man, so they wouldn't become a burden on their families. The idea of giving a girl a profession never even crossed anyone's mind. And yet, whenever she saw women in white coats, the doctors, something in her chest gave a sigh, her gaze slipping into dreams. Sometimes, when one of her cows struggled to give birth, she herself would step in, blood and sweat covering her, and when at last the calf came out alive, she would feel, for a moment, like a heroic doctor in a white coat. Enough of this, she whispered, shaking herself free of her thoughts. Fresh yogurt! Yogurt! She called into the street, eager to sell her remaining jars as quickly as she could. Sometimes in life, a person takes a path where, in the end, their dreams seem to have disappeared beneath the dust and dirt. But in this world, nothing happens without a reason, and nothing is created in vain. Seville's story is not just about a woman searching for her livelihood. It is a reflection of the compassion, patience, and hope that God has placed in every woman. No matter how difficult life becomes, a person always carries a light within their heart. Like Seville's thought, maybe my child will have a better future. Work done with faith and hope, with righteous effort, will one day bear fruit. Even though Seville's voice echoes through her neighborhood, in truth, she is sending a quiet message to all women. Be patient, try hard, and never lose hope. The pleasant air of spring, the fresh pale green leaves on the trees, the chirping of birds, the cheerful voices of children playing in the yard, all gave a person a pleasant feeling. A quiet peace would settle in one's heart. Since it was Saturday, Gunay had come home early from school. She was telling her grandmother everything that happened in class, trying not to leave out even the smallest detail. Grandma listened with full attention, turning the beads of her rosary as she remembered God, occasionally taking a sip of the fresh mint tea in front of her. Both of Gunay's parents worked, so they returned home only in the evenings, while her brother, busy preparing for university entrance exams, spent his time after school on extra lessons. Gunay's greatest fortune was her grandmother. The old woman cooked the meals before the family arrived, did some light cleaning, and kept the house neat and tidy. She would also teach all this to Gunay, and the girl would gladly obey her grandmother's requests, helping her with love and devotion. Her grandmother always said, "Work for me, learn for yourself." Sometimes she would speak of her own life story, turning its lessons into simple words for Gunay to grasp. The two loved each other dearly and got along very well. Yet this love was not only between them. It bound the entire family. In a family built on love and respect, elders are always treated with honor, and the young with affection and care. Although her parents had lived through tough times and could not pursue higher education, they had both completed vocational school. Together, shoulder to shoulder, they bore the family's financial burdens, so their children might study well. Gunay and her grandmother were deep in their sweet conversation when suddenly there was a knock at the door. "Go, dearie, see who it is. But ask first before you open." "All right, Grandma," said Gunay, and went to the door. On the doorstep stood Seville, the yogurt seller from last time, and behind her stood a shy young girl. "Hey, my pretty girl, how are you? Is your grandmother at home?" "Hi, Auntie. Thank you, I'm fine. Yes, she's home. Please, come in," Gunay replied. though she couldn't take her eyes off the girl. "Look, I've brought Aitar to meet you. Be friends. I told her about you and she insisted, 'Mummy, take me too. Let me see that girl.'"
At these words, Aitaj blushed and lowered her head. She was the same age as Gunay, of medium build, with long golden hair and a fair, pretty face. Gunay noticed the sunburn on her cheeks and the small calluses that had already formed on her young hands. Smiling, she reached out her hand. "Hey, welcome," she said. Encouraged, Aitaj extended her hand too. "Thank you," was all she said. Gunay and her grandmother set the tea table together. They laid out fresh strawberry jam, cut sugar cubes, almond sweets, brightly wrapped caramels, wafers and biscuits. And, of course, there were fresh mint leaves, her grandmother's favourite. Grandma would always say, "Mint strengthens the heart." She even added dried mint to her cooking. Perhaps that was why, at 72, she could still handle the household chores with ease. Once the tea was done, Grandmother said to Gunay, "Go on, dearie. Sit with the girl in the other room. Look through your books together. Talk a while." "All right," Gunay replied, and the girl stood up and went into the other room. "What grade are you in?" Gunay asked. "8th grade." "What will you be when you grow up?" "I don't know." "I want to be a doctor. It's my mother's dream. She even sewed me a doctor's cap." "And are all these your books? Have you read them all?" "Yes, they're mine. These are my school books. And here, on this side, are the literary ones. I love reading literature." "Literature? What's that?" "Oh, don't you know? Books for further reading. I read famous works by well-known Azerbaijani writers and world literature." Aitaj looked at her with surprise. The subject was already starting to bore her. Her eyes wandered around the room and suddenly caught the framed certificates hanging on the wall. "And what are those?" "Those are my awards for good study." But, seeing that this did not interest Aitaj, Gunay quickly changed the subject. "Do you live in a village? What animals do you have in the yard?" "Oh, how I wish we had a village house too, with lots of chicks and a dog and a cat." The moment the village was mentioned, Aitaj's eyes lit up and she began to speak with excitement. "Ah, if only you could see our cat, you would melt. Sister, we've seen cats that fear dogs, but our Mustan plays right in front of the dog and even eats from its bowl. And let me tell you about our cows. They know our house so well. Once we painted the door, yet still they came and stood right at the gate, mooing loudly." Aitaj spoke so joyfully, with such delight about the beauties of village life, that in Gunay's imagination the place came alive as a wonderful land. Sometimes our paths cross with others in ways we don't immediately understand, but every meeting, every conversation is like a spark. It awakens new hope in some and opens new horizons in the hearts of others. The meeting between Seville's daughter Aitaj and Gunay was no coincidence. It was as if fate had brought together two different life journeys at one point, one representing the hard-working life of the village, and the other a childhood nurtured with love and care in the city. Yet both girls carried sincerity, purity, and kindness in their hearts. This reminds us that a person's true worth is not defined by whether they live in a city or a village, but by their hard-earned living and the knowledge they put to good use. By now, a warm friendship had blossomed between Gunay and Aitaj. Every 2 weeks, Seville's family would come to sell yogurt, and the girls awaited those days with impatient excitement. Each came with her hands and heart full. Aitaj would bring Gunai beautiful flowers and plants she had found in the mountains, meadows, or their own yard, carefully pressed between sheets of newspaper. She would not stop there. She would pass along all she had heard from the village elders about their uses and remedies. Gunai, on the other hand, spent her pocket money on small gifts, stickers, pens or pencils, sometimes hairpins, to delight her friend. As soon as the girls met, they would first hug each other tightly, then exchange the gifts they prepared, shower one another with compliments, and finally get to what mattered most, pouring out their hearts. When Gunai spoke about what went on at her school, Aitaj listened wide-eyed in awe. After all, their own village school was nothing like it. Dim, run-down classrooms with rickety desks, a chalkboard scarred from years of chalk marks, and a bookcase without even a proper door. Compared to that, Gunai's stories felt like a dream. Her school was large and beautiful. It even had a Russian language section, a rich library, a spacious cafeteria, the gym, changing rooms, a room for military lessons, and a large assembly hall. Once, a puppet theatre had even performed there, and on another occasion, the children's beloved Uncle Alakbar himself had come. It was a 3-story building. In Aitaj's village, there wasn't a single 3-story building. Not even houses. The tallest were 2-story houses belonging to the wealthy, built by families who had earned money working in bazaars in Russia. All the rest were simple, single-story houses, most of them old.
Look, see what lovely flowers I've brought you. I picked these at the foot of the mountain. She handed Gunay a neat parcel wrapped in newspaper. When Gunay unfolded it and saw the carefully layered blossoms inside, her eyes widened. She had never seen flowers so delicate and colourful. These only grow in our region. I don't know all their names, but I know their benefits. The old grandmothers in our village use each of them for some illness. Really? How interesting. Yes, I love listening to those grandmothers. You know, whenever I find a new plant, I take it to them and they'll talk and talk. I never get tired of hearing their stories. But how did you get so interested in flowers? I just love them. Whenever I have free time, I wander through the grass in the yard looking for what grows there besides weeds. I don't know. I could spend all day with them and never be bored. As she spoke of flowers, her eyes shone so brightly that Gunay asked at once, "Aitaj, you'd become a great biologist. Have you ever thought of that?" What? What? Biologist? What's that? Someone who studies plants, who learns all about them. Oh, nothing will ever come of me. Me? Study? No. She shook her head. Why do you say that? Studying isn't so hard. Anyone who wants to can learn. No, sister. Who knows what will become of my studies? I'll go until 9th grade and that will be that. Then I'll help my mother at home. What's the use of studying? Gunay felt saddened by her friend's words. She wanted Aitaj to study so much that she started thinking of ways to convince her. Look, Aitaj, if you want to, I swear you can do it. We're only in 8th grade. The real lessons start in 9th grade. By then, I'll help you. You'll catch up with us. I don't know. Aitaj shrugged. My cousin works as a teacher of language and literature. Can you imagine the pride when she enters the classroom with the grade book in her hands? And her students? On Teacher's Day, they shower her with flowers and gifts. She buys beautiful dresses. She has many handbags. Sometimes she even takes her students on outings to the city. Don't you want to be a teacher like that? Or a doctor? As Gunay spoke, Aitaj's imagination carried her far away. She saw herself in a white coat alongside doctor friends, travelling to the mountainous regions of Azerbaijan. She gathered herbs and flowers, studied them, and prepared natural medicines. People who drank her remedies grew well, and when they thanked her, her heart swelled with joy. The dream painted a smile upon her lips. But Gunay's voice pulled her back. "Well, what do you say? Do you want to study?" "I don't know. No one among our relatives got education. Even if I wanted to, what would my family say? Would they agree? Why wouldn't they? My parents' greatest wish is to see me educated, to see me become a doctor. Tell yours, you'll see how happy they'll be." "All right. I'll speak to them on the way home." The girls talked for a long while, then parted as always with a tight embrace. On the long way back, no one spoke. Her father kept his eyes fixed on the road, now and then glancing at the expensive cars that sped past, sighing to himself. Her mother rested her head against the window, lost in deep thought, occasionally turning to give her daughter a faint smile. Aitaj, unsure how to begin, finally gathered herself. "Father, has anyone from our village ever studied and become a doctor?" From the rear-view mirror, her father cast her a quick glance and said, "No, my daughter, our doctor came from the city." "Then, would you let me study on and become a doctor?" Her father gripped the wheel angrily. We have everything we need, as if the only thing missing is a doctor. The 9th grade is enough for you." Aitaj opened her mouth to protest, but her mother, silent until then, spoke up sharply. "Hush, let's get home safely first. We'll talk later." Aitaj fell silent, turning her face to the window. The thorn bushes scattered across the grey plain seemed to race alongside the car, mile after mile. Her desire to become a doctor had thrown the household into confusion. Seville tried to raise the matter with her husband, echoing the old woman's words, but he would shut it down with remarks like, "What's the use of a girl studying? A girl? And being a doctor? Forget it." In truth, he adored his daughter. Yet more than anything, he feared the blame of the people in the village. Aitaj sat quietly, silently watching it all. She knew that once her father said no, there was no turning back. So she stayed still and listened. It was late into the night when her father stepped out onto the balcony for a smoke and noticed Aitaj still sitting there. "Why aren't you asleep, my girl?" "Nothing, father. I just couldn't fall asleep." "How come? You've been on the way all day. Aren't you tired?" "I don't know." "Uh-huh. You're still thinking about being a doctor, aren't you?" He came over, sat beside her, stroked her hair and kissed her. "My daughter, first finish 9th grade. After that we'll see. God is generous." "Really, father? If I do well, will you let me?" Aitaj asked with joy. "I told you, we'll see." "You're the best father. I love you so much," she said and hugged him. "All right, now go to bed, it's late. You'll get up early tomorrow." Aitaj whispered, "All right," and went to her room happily. His daughter's joy and the way she hugged him lifted his spirits too. Although he loved his daughter deeply, he didn't know how to show his love. How could he have known? He had never seen it, not at home nor among the neighbours. All he ever heard were sayings like, "A father must be strict for his word to be respected," or "He who doesn't discipline his daughter will one day weep for her." So, though he didn't want to, he hid the love inside him and forced himself to believe such words. Days and months flew by. Soon the 9th grade exams had begun. Gunay studied with all her might.
During that time, she met Aitaj less often. Sometimes once a month, sometimes once every 2 months. But whenever they met, they picked up their conversations where they had left off. Aitaj too began giving more time to her lessons. Gunay encouraged her at every step. At last, the exams ended. Gunay finished 9th grade with excellent marks and moved on to the 10th. Exhausted from the lessons, her family sent her to her uncle's house for rest. His house had a yard, and Gunay loved being there. She never tired of swinging under the great mulberry tree and enjoyed her aunt's delicious cooking. And in the evenings, she drank tea from the samovar her uncle had boiled. She played with the sweet ducklings in the yard, and most of all with the cat, Mozu. When she was there, she never wanted the holidays to end. But every good thing must come to an end, and so did this summer. Gunay returned home. School was about to start. She went shopping with her father to buy everything she needed for school. Gunay loved no one in this world as much as her father. For her, he was a world, and for him, she was the same. To understand their love, one had to be like them. Relatives and neighbours would often say the same thing, but her father would never pay attention to their words. He raised her with love and care. My daughter will study, become a doctor, and add years to her father's life, he would say. Her father's mercy-filled, tender love did not spoil Gunay. On the contrary, it made her more responsible. As the Turkish saying goes, too much love does not spoil. The school year began. Gunay worked diligently. Her brother had been admitted to study petroleum engineering and lived the excitement of student life. As Gunay listened to her brother and heard about his university adventures, she became even more motivated and progressed successfully in her studies. But whenever she thought of Aitaj, she felt sad, and her spirits sank. Since the end of summer, she had seen neither Aitaj nor Aunt Seville. Neighbours said they no longer came. Gunay worried, but could do nothing except pray for her friend. Sincere friendship, care, and mutual respect enrich a child's soul. The bond between Gunay and Aitaj, the way they value each other and share their dreams, is not just about sharing moments of joy, but about lighting the way for one another's hopes. The flowers Aitaj brings from the mountains, and the small gifts Gunay gives in return, are more than simple tokens of beauty. They are expressions of pure intention and heartfelt kindness. The love between a father and his daughter is sometimes expressed without words. Aitaj's father loves her deeply, yet fear and the pressure of society prevent him from showing it openly. Gunay's father, on the other hand, raises his daughter with love and care, despite social judgment. He knows that love is like water. Too much can drown a flower, too little can make it wither. A parent's attention and understanding nurture a garden of hope in a child's heart. But even a withered flower keeps its fragrance. And like those flowers, children like Aitaj grow up holding on to their dreams and hopes despite life's hardships. Sincere intention, care, and giving value to others. These are what make the most precious flowers of life bloom.
2 years slipped by quickly.
Gunay had entered student life. She had been admitted to the Faculty of Medicine at the Medical University. The family was filled with joy and celebration. Her father celebrated for 3 days, sharing his joy with friends, relatives, and colleagues. The excitement of student days was sweet, but lessons were difficult, and the journey to the university was long. On weekends, she tried to sleep late, spend more time with her family, and enjoy her grandmother's delicious cooking. It was a Saturday, an autumn morning. Gunay was still half asleep. The chill of the air, the warmth of her woolen quilt made her reluctant to rise. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out in the yard. "Fresh yogurt! Yogurt! Fresh, sweet, new creamy village yogurt!" Hearing these words, she quickly got out of bed, went to the window, drew back the curtain and looked out into the yard. It can't be. The yellow Zhiguli. It's Auntie Seville's car. She hurried into the next room, breathless with excitement. "Mother, Grandma, it's Auntie Seville. I swear it's her voice. It's their car." "Let me run down quickly. I'll ask about Aitaj." Her mother caught her hand. "You've only just woken. Dress first. It's cold outside. I'll call her up." Gunay squeezed her mother's gentle hand and smiled. "All right, Mummy." The door opened. Gunay rushed joyfully to greet her but froze in place. This was not the warm-faced, smiling Seville auntie she remembered. Before her stood a woman in all black, with a cotton shawl tied around her head. Her hair had gone completely white, her eyes sunken as if into hollows. "My precious girl," she cried, throwing her arms around Gunay. She hugged her tightly, kissed her face and stroked her wavy hair. Gunay did not know what to say or do. After holding her for a long while, Seville stepped aside. Her mother and grandmother invited Seville inside. The tea table was already set. Seville looked around with tearful eyes. When her gaze met Gunay, she could not restrain herself. She burst into loud sobs. Gunay started getting frightened and uneasy. Her grandmother said, "Oh, what's the matter, girl? Why do you look at my granddaughter and weep like that?" Seville wiped her tears, tried to calm herself, and with a heavy sigh said, Auntie, if only you knew what happened to me. My cursed head, my poor head." She beat her head hard with both hands. Grandmother, now angry, snapped, "Have you gone mad? What is this? Girl, I'm no fortune teller, no seer. How can I know? Speak plainly. Tell us what happened. You've broken our hearts early in the morning." Her grandmother's words seemed to wake Seville from a dream. "Then let me begin from the start," she said, her eyes fixed on emptiness. The 9th grade exams had just ended. My Aitaj, may her mother perish, had been inspired by Gunay and passed all exams with 4 and 5 marks. She said that after the holidays she would ask Gunay for test books. She too wanted to prepare. She was so eager that even when she went after the cattle, she carried her book in her bosom. My poor child. In August, our neighbour's son returned from Russia. The whole village gathered to watch him. Tall, broad, with a heavy gold chain on his chest, a gold bracelet on his arm, and possessing a costly Mercedes. Whoever looked at him once wanted to look again. Damn it. He was a respected and well-established young man in Russia. It turned out he had come seeking a bride. Aitaj was a pretty girl who caught his eye. First, a message was sent. I refused. Then another proposal. I refused again, saying it was too early. But Aitaj held her head, saying, "I'd rather die than marry him. He and I are nothing alike. He's arrogant, showing off his money everywhere. I don't like him. Besides, I want to study." In short, one day the elders gathered, my in-laws too. They all spoke together, and in the end, they persuaded my husband. We agreed to let her get married. At this point, Gunay's grandmother could no longer hold back. "Shame on you. Are you not ashamed to marry the girl off without her consent, and to one who came from Russia? Who knows how many children he's had there? Now you've made me talk in front of the child. You put your girl in danger of 100 diseases." Gunai and her mother continued listening in silence, shocked. Seville went on. May my tongue have turned to stone the moment I said yes. Poor fool that I was, what did I know? I thought, my girl will escape poverty. She will see better days. She will have a comfortable home. I never imagined this. The engagement took place in August. They had organised such a lavish ceremony that the whole village came to watch. My poor child's tears poured from her eyes as the ring was placed on her finger. At first, they said the wedding would be next year. Then, whatever they decided, it was held in October. The groom initially said he would take her to Russia right after. But after the wedding, they stayed here, living with his parents. Once the wedding was done, and then they began to reveal their true faces, slowly. Fights would break out at home frequently. The mother-in-law would scold Aitaj for no reason. Then she would provoke Jehun to beat her.
"My poor sister," Gunai sighed deeply. Whenever Aitaj managed to meet us, she would weep, saying, "Mummy, I swear, these people are not normal. Please, save me." After 6 or 7 months, her mother-in-law no longer even allowed her to visit us. And whenever we visited them, they always found some excuse to leave the house. Still, whenever she found the chance, my poor daughter would complain to me, saying she wanted to divorce. And I, may my tongue dry, kept giving her advice, trying to calm her. Every household has quarrels. It's nothing. Just pretend you didn't hear. I never realised that right before my eyes, I was throwing my own child into the fire. Seville paused, sighed deeply, fixed her tearful eyes on a single point and went on. One day her mother-in-law called. "Your girl is in pain. We took her to the doctor. Come." In a rush, her father and I went to the regional hospital. After examining her, the doctor said she was pregnant. It turned out my poor daughter had felt it and, out of fear, hadn't told anyone at home. She threw herself into heavy chores so that a miscarriage would occur. When she went to milk the cow, she felt faint, collapsed right there. By the time the family noticed, she was already unconscious. Anyway, when the doctor gave the news, their faces lit up with joy. "Insha'Allah, may it be a boy. We'll give him his grandfather's name," they said, rejoicing. The doctor told us to be more careful now, take the medicines on time and care for her properly. I said to the mother-in-law, "At least let me take her for a week. I'll look after her till she recovers." At first they objected, then after whispering among themselves, agreed. That week felt as if they had given my Aitaj back to me. Her father and I were at her service, wouldn't let her lift a finger. I cooked good meals, and her father brought all kinds of treats. But each time my girl whimpered, "Mummy, please, I wish this baby would go away. I don't want it. I don't want anything that comes from them." A week later, Jehun came and took her back to their home. From time to time I would visit, bringing vitamins and the food she loved, so she could eat and regain her strength. But she no longer spoke as before. She moved quietly around the house, keeping to herself. I comforted myself, thinking she was slowly growing attached to her baby. By mid-December, her condition had worsened. Her mother-in-law called to say they were taking her to the hospital. We all rushed there. My poor daughter looked as if she was struggling for her life. She kept saying, "Mummy, if anything happens to me, You take care of my baby. Don't leave her with them. After a hard delivery, the nurse came out with the good news. Congratulations! Where's my tip? You have a beautiful baby girl.
The moment they heard it was a girl, the in-laws' faces darkened.
What's there to tip for a girl? They muttered. Her father and I quickly gave a tip for our granddaughter and asked about Aitaj. Both are fine. Mum just needs rest, she told us. 5 days later, we went to bring Aitaj home. Auntie, you should have seen their faces, as if they were welcoming an enemy's child. I brought her to my house instead. For 40 days, I cared for them both, mother and baby. She didn't want to breastfeed. I persuaded her gently, and little by little she did. It seemed Aitaj had accepted her baby at last. As soon as she was back on her feet, the in-laws came and took her away. I kept consoling myself, thinking that now with the baby things would get better, the quarrels would stop. But it was the same old story as before. As the baby grew, she became so sweet, her grandmother's darling, shining like the sun. Since they never gave her a name, we called her Ganesh, meaning the sun, among ourselves, and cherished her. Each day, Aitaj withered further. She hardly spoke anymore, busy only with housework and the baby. The mother-in-law piled all the chores on her. Her husband, damn him, would sometimes run off for work to Russia, stay away for months, then return, acting as if he were doing them a favour. When Jehun was gone, his mother grew even more vicious, making Aitaj's life miserable, interfering in everything, from what she ate to when she slept, to how she cared for the baby, always stirring up quarrels in the house. I kept telling Aitaj, "My dear, for God's sake, don't argue with her. Just lower your head and raise your child." But each time she would answer, "Mummy, if anything happens to me, promise you'll take my daughter." My little Ganesh was 6 months old. That night I had terrifying nightmares. In the morning, I stood by the water basin lost in thought, when suddenly the gate banged open. I turned and saw our neighbour Elshan, his face white with fear, shouting, "Aunt Seville, come quickly to Aitaj's." The moment I heard it, I don't know why, the words slipped from my mouth. My home has fallen apart. Perhaps it was a mother's instinct. I quickly got into the car with her father and brother, and we drove off. When we arrived, we saw a crowd gathered in their yard. My mind went blank, and I rushed into the yard. "Where is Aitaj?" I kept asking, when suddenly Jehun came out of the cowshed, carrying Aitaj in his arms, and laid her in front of us. Seville struck her head with both hands and burst into tears. "He laid my child, my Aitaj's dead body, down before us." Grandmother and mother wept. Gunai shouted, "What? Aunt Seville, what are you saying? What do you mean, Aitaj's dead body? It can't be." Her mother, sobbing, squeezed Gunai's hand. "Seville, what are you saying, sister? Oh my God." Grandmother wiped her eyes with the corner of her scarf and flared at Seville. Poor girl. She had not seen or lived anything in this world. "You've left a baby motherless. Are you satisfied now?" Seville lowered her head in guilt and continued, "My poor daughter took her own life. There had been another quarrel at home that night. Before dawn she woke, changed the baby, fed her, laid her in the cradle. Then she went to the cowshed. When the family awoke, they heard the baby crying, but no matter how much they called her, she didn't answer. Finally, the mother-in-law went into the cowshed. She found my unfortunate daughter had hanged herself. Hearing this, Gune could not hold herself back and broke into hard sobs. It can't be, Seville Auntie. Aitaj loved life. She would never kill herself. Though crying, her mother steadied herself, took Gunay by the hand, and led her to the other room to calm her. Grandmother, eyes wet, looked at Seville. See to what point you drove her, that even her baby no longer appeared before her eyes. Taking one's own life is a grave sin. What answer will you give in the hereafter?
Auntie, it wasn't me. That mother-in-law's and that family, may they die 1,000 deaths, drove my poor child to despair.
Hush. What did you expect when you married your daughter off for wealth? To a man whose background you never checked and whose morals you didn't know. Marry her off and be done with it is no way. You ought to have prepared your daughter for family life, not only to do household chores, but also to understand life and to tell right from wrong. And above all, the girl's own consent must be obtained. Haven't you heard the prophets saying that a girl must not be married off without her own consent? You handed her over to people whose ways and character you didn't even know. She died once, but you will die and revive every day. Those others will bear their punishment too. God's patience is vast. Sooner or later it will catch them. As for that mother-in-law, I don't call such a thing a mother, nor a woman. A bride comes into your home. Be a mother to the girl at least. Teach her what she doesn't know. Stand by her. One should spit in such a face. The rope should be hung around their necks, not hers.
Seville had no answer, because grandmother's words were true.
And now, who cares for that orphaned baby? Seville sighed deeply. I brought her home straight from the morning. I told them never to come to my door again. Aitaj entrusted her to me. They cared so little they hadn't even gotten the child's birth certificate. Her grandfather and I had sorted it out. You did right. You could not protect your daughter. At least be a good grandmother to the grandchild. Guard her. Of course, Auntie. My Ganesh is my everything. She is the sun born in the cold of winter. She is the sun that lights my daughter's dark grave. As long as there is breath in me, I will work and toil for her. Let her lack for nothing by God's help. May God bless her with a long life. Amen. When Seville had poured out her heart, she said goodbye and stood up. Gunay's mother and grandmother prayed that God would forgive Aitaj, wished Seville patience, and saw her off. Seville had wanted to see Gunay, but her mother said it wasn't a good moment. Gunay stood at the window, eyes fixed on the yard, recalling the happy memories with Aitaj, while tears rolled down her cheeks like tiny beads. Seville descended the stairs with heavy steps. It felt as if stones weighed down her heart. Beneath the burden of life, there was only one thing that lightened her soul and turned her darkness into light: Ganesh, the sun. Now she had to revive her daughter's withered hopes through Ganesh. The very sun that rose on a cold winter morning would now bring warmth to her heart and melt the ice of her sorrows. Together, as if reborn, they would step into a new life, stronger, with new hopes. This incident is not just the tragedy of one girl. It reflects the fate of many others. But under no circumstances should a person take their own life, because after every night comes a morning, and after every hardship comes ease. Aitaj's decision to commit suicide was the weakest choice of all. By committing one of the greatest sins, she not only darkened her own world,
but also left a child without a mother, and a mother with tearful eyes. That is why when making choices, we must think not only of ourselves, but also of our families and those around us. After all, a person is not an isolated individual, but a part of the greater society.
Everything that happens in life, especially a young girl's story that ends in tragedy, should not only bring us sorrow, but also teach us a lesson. Sometimes parents believe that marrying their daughters into wealthy families will bring them happiness. But true happiness does not lie in wealth, gold, or expensive cars. Happiness lives in families built on mutual understanding, respect, compassion, and sincerity. Aitaj's tragedy also reminds us that every young girl's heart is like a flower. If nurtured with care, it will bloom and fill the world with its fragrance. But if treated with cruelty and violence, not only will it wither, but also it will spread darkness to those around it. Becoming a mother-in-law is another test of motherhood. To show kindness to the woman your son has chosen, to guide her, to support her, this is one of the most beautiful examples of womanhood and motherhood. A woman who oppresses her daughter-in-law, in truth, diminishes her own womanhood. Aitaj's decision to take her own life is a warning to all of us. No young girl should ever fall into such despair. No pain in life is permanent. Every wound has its healing, and every night is followed by a dawn. The light that rises from the darkness, like Aitaj's daughter, Ganesh. A child is a trust given to us by God. To protect that trust, to guide it, not through force, but with mercy, is our duty. So let us give our daughters confidence, listen to them, and above all, lead them toward good deeds, faith, patience, and compassion.